Hi, I'm going to do a celebrity reading on Daniel Johnston, a musician who passed away. Sorry, my dog is like really busy. I'm sitting on the floor, so he might like get on my lap. So I'm just going to focus on his energy for a moment. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm just going to close my eyes for a moment and just connect. Yeah, just to begin, I would just want to mention, like, I've seen the movie about him called The Devil and Daniel Johnston, like probably 3 times over many years. And I saw it fairly recently. Yeah, and I was really struck this time around by how misunderstood he was, like as an empath, as like a prophet and type of person, like who's here highly psychic, and who's also like feeling very directly like energy, like spiritual energy. And especially that scene where he was splashing in the river and people were interpreting it in like a way that people who've never felt like the bliss of spiritual connection, thinking it was like a crazy act. But anybody who's excellent at meditation, or who just naturally feels the source energy, or like the power of the universe, like universal love that is like everywhere, um it can lead to that level of gratitude and appreciation and connection with nature and stuff. So it was upsetting to see some scenes like where people prevented him from following his intuition about his own career, his love life, or you know and that scene too where like Sonic Youth were labeling him as crazy and trying to get him on a bus just to get him out of their hair and stuff. So it's just like, for me, being someone who also is intuitive and who has their own kind of plan for their life that they created from their intuition and stuff, and then who's an empath and musical and stuff like that, like it just felt like his life was just like a series of people tripping him up and labeling him negatively, when I think, like, had he been born today, he would experience something completely different from people. I mean, having lived through the 90s, it was kind of like kind of a dark period. I felt it's kind of like how people dressed and stuff. Like, it was just kind of gloomy in some respects after the 80s, which was kind of like, it had aspects of fakeness and stuff that I suppose the 90s were reacting to. But yeah, so anyway, I just felt like I was just watching him be abused for the length of the movie, and it was difficult to watch that, like, and it makes me feel for people who, adults and kids who've like gone through this type of labeling. Like, I don't think that they're in a psychologist or psychiatrist's office or an emergency room. I don't think that there's like a checkbox for psychic in terms of, why someone might be feeling so much, or hearing voices, or, feeling the presence of people who are not visible, things like that, that like, if you're intuitive, if you have clairvoyance, clairaudience, etc., like, it's real. If you've never experienced it, you're gonna think it doesn't exist. If you've experienced it, it exists. And it's like, kind of, and never the twain shall meet, but it's whatever. Like, it's people who are spiritual or psychic have existed since the beginning of time. Like, you're going to find it difficult to find a lack of reference to that in any point in history. And like every children's story and many movies are around this theme of spirituality, and it's not for nothing. Anyhow, so I'm just gonna get back into his energy after I lectured on that for a bit. But so now I'll introduce you to my dog. It's Dr. Disco. He's busy licking my hand while I'm trying to concentrate. Okay. I feel like he's, busy in a higher realm and kind of like doesn't want to be bothered. So I don't want to bother him too much. Respecting his wish there. The feeling I get is if he didn't have good boundaries on Earth, he has good boundaries now. And so that's interesting. I'll just ask if there's anything he wants to, thoughts or something, not getting into his own personal energy too much, but if there's any messages he wants to relay. I feel like the theme of love is still like really strong. Like he wrote some beautiful love songs. And I feel like he wants to convey that people have like a pure desire to love. Like people shouldn't go out of their way to like stop that, like whether it's through jealousy, a feeling of lack that people have and they don't want to see other people thrive, or they think it's a mismatch and they're voicing that. Like, I think he's asking if people can create like a perimeter of 5 feet of like silence and no physical obstruction around people just trying to fall in love and not be bothered. Not to gossip about it, to see it as something important and pure and necessary. And if people can view love in that way, that like it's to be respected and like things can be given space. Like, for instance, let's say, in terms of like how I think and stuff, like I believe that the only like real possibility for love is on being unconditionally loving. Anything short of that is just going to be like a hot mess and create like distortions, like arguments or things like that. And that means that like even if you appreciate someone or you desire them as a partner, but you see that they're busy trying to figure out if they love somebody, to just know that like it's okay to allow, if you truly love someone, you'll allow them the space to like figure out what they want. And in the meantime, you have your own glow up. They have their glow up or their adventures, whatever. And if for some reason, like both of you in your own strength decide to coexist, then great. But it's not something to cry over or fight over. I mean, plus there's so many of us on Earth right now, like just like you don't need to. There's no lack of potential mates and stuff. Especially with the internet and stuff, like you're not just like stuck in your village trying to choose over like the two hot people in town. Like there's it's a whole big world out there. Okay, so I'm gonna see if there's any other messages. There's also something else about like parental abuse type of thing, like verbal violence, like that it's important to take that seriously and to find ways to like stop it. I don't know how to express that perfectly, but like there should be some form of intervention on verbal violence, like emotional violence, in the home and stuff, and to not normalize just that type of like uh, ongoing trauma, like I think that's called complex trauma, where it's not just one event. It's like it happens over and over, and it might be like little subtle things, or it might be worse. But it's like it's complex because it's like happening in these various forms and over time and stuff. So, and I was thinking about that too, just in terms of just totally different subject. I saw the documentary about the Menendez brothers and how they were so abused by their parents, like their whole life, and like, and there's like in the States, you're allowed to protect your property with a gun, but like in terms of like if you think of your body as your house, like do people have the same right to protect themselves in regards to that? And like how does that reflect on like the case of the Menendez brothers and stuff? I was just sort of thinking about that, like what is a house, or like what is property, or what is like worth protecting, and like what are the rights in terms of like not being abused in certain regards and stuff. Like it's I'm not a legal expert, but it's just like something to think about, how legally, anyway, just back to this Daniel Johnston thought I'm having, like what are the legal ways to, even if you're an adult, to stop people from like verbally abusing you or emotionally abusing you, or I know like there's like youth services, let's say, if you're a minor, but then in some cases people might not want to be like removed from their home, but like to normalize the like unacceptability of verbal violence and emotional violence in the home, just as a family decision among like everyone in the world, like it's the kind of thing uh be good. And so I feel like he's highlighting that like he was not protected from this type of thing, and he would have I feel like he's communicating that he would have thrived more in life and as an artist, had he had that not been acceptable behavior. And I don't think you can really blame it on the time, because I don't think everybody, let's say in the 60s and 70s and 80s, like were abusive in that way. Sorry, my dog is really having the Olympics right now. Okay, I'll see if there's another message. I don't want to bother him too much. And he's also showing that type of energy of like appreciating the river type of thing I was talking about before, like spiritual ecstasy, I guess. And I mean, the irony, is on one side, people find it unacceptable to see someone splashing in a river praising God, right? And then on the other hand, people buy like tickets and squish into stadiums to watch someone in like another form of ecstasy, like playing music, and it's essentially the same thing. Like music, the word music is like muse. I can't remember. So like it's intuition, and intuition comes from a spiritual place. So okay, what do you, all right, and what do you want? What do you want? So people find that acceptable if it's on a stage and there's some kind of like distance, but if it's just sort of if you round a corner in your neighborhood and you see someone like in spiritual ecstasy, like that's not acceptable. Like, like people have to, if you're not spiritually connected and you don't feel bliss when you think about it, you have to have tolerance for people that do. And if it's not harming anyone, I don't think that people should really be drugged over that, because it's actually like where a lot of people get their ideas. Like, for instance, Einstein and Tesla. I think both talk about like how important intuition is in terms of like where they got their ideas. And if they were put on meds to stop them from being so original or curious, or, I mean, Einstein was partly responsible for the atomic bomb, so maybe that wouldn't have been so bad. But in terms of Tesla, like, he made a lot of good inventions. But yeah, like, I think the knee-jerk reaction of people to medicate people who show signs of spirituality, like, is a mistake. If nobody's being hurt and they're just experiencing like a connection to unconditional love and like God energy, like, that's not something that people need to rush and put an end to. All right, let's see what else he has to say. I feel like he's highlighting that there's a certain karma for people that like really did harm to him, that has either happened or, it's in due course or whatever. That's normal. Like, justice is blind. And if someone is handing out malicious actions, like it all comes full circle. No matter who we're talking about, like this is just a rule of the universe. Nothing goes unnoticed, you reap what you sow kind of thing. So that's just something he's highlighting. And I feel like the last message he wants to share is that access to music instruments or musical education for kids should just be like a part of every school. Like many schools have it, but a lot of them don't. And not everything musical needs to take place in an orchestra class. Like just having access to instruments, like, there might be people that enjoy organized musical stuff, but then there's people who just like to tinker, and there should be space for both. Just like in an art class, like you can choose your materials, and this is hopefully in an art class there's a sense of freedom. Like I know there are teachers who are insisting on drawing within the lines and stuff, and I don't know what their goal is, but it's not really like if you look at what's in the museums, they're not highlighting like people that draw within the lines, let's say. So it's like, why bother? Okay, my dog's barking. So okay, so I'll probably bring the video to a close, partly because of my dog, but I'm just gonna send him some good energy. If you want to join me in that, like, please do. I feel like he's still processing the hurt that he went through in his lifetime, and he's like in a on a spiritual level that's not completely like with God. It's like between here and there, like where people do to sort out sorry, what just happened, and to hear from it, you could see it as like a healing center between here and there or something. Because what happened to him was very traumatic. Yeah, he's very serious. I feel like in his next life, he'll, if he chooses to come back, he would come back as a writer, and he'd be his soul energy is sorry, very, very serious and very stable. So that this soul would communicate some very strong, important ideas in a clear manner, but like without any fluff and stuff like that. All right, so I'll just sign off, and thank you for joining me, and I'll come back sometime this week for a live psychic Q&A. It's bye from my dog, and I'll talk to you later.